Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today we're Masechtas Nedarim Daf Mem Daled. We are going to begin on the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis, the third line from the bottom, Tanya. So this is going to be based on the Mishnah that we saw in yesterday's Daf. If a person made a neder against his friend, and he is walking, and it turns out that he is with his friend, and his friend needs some food, some water, and there's no one else around, so the Tanakhama says you can just put the food on a rock or on a fence, and you can just say, Harihin Mufkarim, Lukol Mishiachbots. Whoever wants, it's Hefker, they can take. However, the Rav Yossi says you cannot do such a thing. And we mentioned that Rav Yossi discusses also whether or not a person can retract from that which you made Hefker until it's actually in the hands of the person, which is the din of a matana. When it comes to a gift, until it's actually in the hands of the person that you give it to, it's not considered to be not yours yet. So too, a hefker, you have the ability to retract it. And we end up saying that there was an issue of matnas beis choron, in the event where you first made the neder, then did the hefker, that you're going to just retract on it because you didn't really have intentions really to give it to him because you didn't want it to become hefker, really. You wanted just to give it to him, but because of the neder, there's the only reason why you did it. So Tanya. So we have this machlokas according to, again, the opinion of Rav Yossi, whether you could do such a thing. So, hamakra sadeyu. What happens if a person is mafker their field? Now, kol shlosh yomim, so the Reisha says, the first 3 days, yochel lachsabo. Even though you made it ownerless, you could retract. Now, that sounds a lot like the opinion that like the Rabbanon. Now, why? Because he says mikan be'elch ein yochel lachsabo, that you can't retract. So the seif, as we're going to see, makes this is the Reisha, but this sentence makes a lot of sense because even though you haven't had this land be transferred over to anyone else, he still says ein yochel lachsabo, which is unlike the opinion of Rav Yossi, because Rav Yossi said that you could always retract. And we're going to see the reason for this, why not then the first 3 days, l'chari you shouldn't be able to retract then either. So we're going to see why that's the case in the Ran. But nonetheless, it's the Reisha. The first 3 days after that you made hefker, you can get it back. However, afterwards, ein yochel lachsabo, you cannot do so anymore. Okay, so look at some of this Ran. So we see like this: Shema mina hachi katani kol gimel yomim. The first 3 days, yochel lachsabo mehafkero. You're allowed to retract. But feel zoch acher. Now this, according to the Reisha, is mashma. Even if, let's say, someone else claimed it already within the first 3 days, it doesn't say it makes any difference. Kodim chazaraso, which is a pretty unbelievable statement. Lo kana, this other person is not kainit. And mafarish time will come on the mafkirin v'hadrin b'hoin, that the reason why you can make something hefker and then you'll be able to reacquire the field, the mishum de hefker pater min a meiser hayu haramoyim mafkirin, that the truth is we're concerned of people that make things hefker because maybe they're just doing it to cause trickery in order to be able to not be obligated in Meiser. So you make it hefker, so you're put from Meiser, then you just get it back. Really, your intention is to immediately take it back. And then you'll be zeichet. And therefore this is really a form of trickery. That's why over here it says that even though we should have this concern, shim yisku behen, that if, let's say, someone was zeichen, it lo yukazeichen min a hefker. It's not like they were zeichen from hefker. Therefore, v'chutzruchu gam hein loimer shavil yisku lo acher. Even if someone else would take it, lo yikna, he's not koinit. V'hei mafker yochel lachsabo toid gimel. He'd have to give it back. So in second, But the whole issue of Ramoyim is the person who's the original owner of the field. The field hachi. Ilo haya, ilo ha lo kaima ha lo kaima ha. Shim yira haramoyim shekashiyizke bo acher. Kana liyishmo divrei chachamim shehem lo yiknu. That once they see that someone else can be koinit, so then they're also going to say that doesn't make sense. How could they be koinit but not me? So it would look strange. Skipping a line, va'od shkivan shenahagor hamoyim. But Ramusan, since they're engaged in their trickery, kol gimel yomim enu misbarer shehefker. The first 3 days, it's not so clear if it's really ownerless. Dikol mechash delo midatayu mifkere. El harama bilvad. Maybe it wasn't really hefker to begin with, which is the reason why the first 3 days he can get it back. And this person who takes it, he's not zoichet because maybe it really wasn't hefker. V'lo yahavi hefker lafichach. Therefore, roy loimish yafil zach bo acher yachal mafkir lachsabo. He can get it back. Shedain lo nigmar hefkero. It's not really hefker yet. However, skipping a line, after 3 days, we're not concerned. Shekol shenasa hahefker bramois, and who would have done this with trickery. Ein habal macharim l'zachos b'yos megimel. They wouldn't have waited 3 days; they would have claimed it right away. So if 3 days went by, it must be taka that it really is hefker. So therefore, pashut, the way of reading the sentence is as follows: the first 3 days, since hefker, the first 3 days yachol achsabo, because it's really not hefker, because we're chayshish of Ramoyim. However, after the 3 days, it's not possible that a Rama is going to not claim it back, so it must be it really is hefker. And therefore, in Yochel Achsabo, he can no longer retract, and therefore, if someone else takes it, so then that other person will be Zaycha. So they don't, again, want, the whole notion of a Rama is they don't want to give Meiser, so they make it hefker. So the Chachamim said that midrabanan it doesn't work right away because of these Ramoyim. So it's not a real din hefker. Okay. So that is the Reisha. As we continue Mem Dalam and Aleph. Omer, but let's say he says it bizman. He says a specific time. It's going to be hefker for 1 day, l'shabbos achas, for 1 week, l'chaydish echad a month, l'shana achas, l'shvu achas. The Rashi says l'shmit achas. Ad shelo zachaba. So let's say no one else claimed it yet. No one else took it. So bein acher yachol achsabo. So he's able to retract. Now this is mashma. Even after 3 days, it doesn't make any difference, which because it hasn't yet been in that person's hand. That sounds a lot like the shita of Rav Yossi, who says that as long as it's not been in someone else's hands, so you could always retract. However, mishazachabag bein acher in yachol achsabo. So Reish Rabbanan say for Rav Yossi. So it seems one of the first 3 answers is that the Reisha of this statement we said is like the Shita of the Rabbanon. What do they say? Says the Ran, the reason why he said when it comes to being mafker this food onto a rock that it doesn't work is Rav Yochanan, the hefker kamatana, it's like a gift. Until it's in the hands of the person you want to give it to, lo nafik mishus mafkir, hasn't left your hands. It's still yours. Mishum hachi kama reisha rabbanon. That's why we have to say the reishas like the rabbanon that say that even after 3 days have gone by, it is hefker, and therefore, if someone, even if someone would not claim it, ein yachol achsabo, right? It says mekan v'elch ein yachol achsabo. So that's what the seif is coming to, that's what the Reish is telling you. That again, you can only be you can be mafgrid after 3 days, but again, that's telling you like the shita of the Rabbanon. However, the seifa is like the shita of Rav Yossi, because Rav Yossi holds that as long as no one claimed it, you could always retract, and that's what it says beferish over here. Ashlu zachaba yachol achsabo. And that's what Rabbi Yossi holds, because it has the din like a matana. Let's go back to the Ran. The Reisha Katani Kol Shoshi Yomim. So we're saying this to the Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan say that hefker is not like a matana, and therefore you're not able to get it back after those 3 days. But why 3 days? So we saw this already. So the Ran says here again, Kol Shoshi Yomim Yachol Asmim Neharamoyim. In other words, it really Mikra Din Midaraisa. It should automatically leave this person's rishos immediately. from the moment that you're mafker. But midrabanan, because the Ramoyim, we say it's not hefker. Medina is really Rabbanan, the hefker me'idna the afker. From the moment you mafker, it was mafker, it's hefker. Nafagim rishus, it leaves your rishus. However, seifa that says that as long as no one claims it, you could always retract, that's like Rav Yossi. Leikol meichash Ramoyim, the seifa is not concerned of Ramoyim, that someone would make this thing hefker just to get out of Meiser. So in this situation, if there's no chashash of Ramoyim, so it's a real hefker, and if someone else is kainit, it works. The idaita the beidna the afgare the lahader v'lischei beil alter. If you could be zeichet immediately, lamulei hafkiro was man yadua. Then why did you use a specific time? Lafkir lagamri lafika. Therefore, says the Ran mishizacha, from the time that someone else picks it up. It doesn't matter when. Bein hu bein acher in yochel achsabo. You can no longer retract. Skipping a couple more lines. Benachinami dechikatanu Rav Yossi ad shlo zachaba bein hu bein acher yochel achsabo lav davke behefker shulaz lizman. It's not really only talking about a time in which there's a time, because Rav Yossi holds, skipping like 4 lines, Desfirli Rav Yossi dechi hader zachibe midideka zachi lo mehefkera. It's not that it's hefker and he can get it back. The point is that it was always his. So it's lav davka, is it only in this particular situation. Rav Yossi said this did. But we're saying that the seifa is like the shita of Rav Yossi. Back in the Gemara. Fine. Reish Rabbanan seifa Rav Yossi. Omer ula seifa nami Rabbanan he. Second teretz, that really the seifa could be like the Rabbanan. So again, the Rabbanan hold that hefker is not like a matana. And therefore, the person meikra hadin, it's as soon as it's hefker, and therefore you can no longer retract. However, we make this 3 days because we're concerned of Ramoyim. We don't want it to be hefker, because then the people are just going to do it to get out of Meiser. So therefore, we say it's not hefker midaraisa, midarabanan. However, the seifa l'chayra doesn't sound like the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say that you should not be able to retract once you are mafgrid. So how come over in the Seifa it says, as long as no one was zoich it, that yochel asabo? So yahachi amai ad shelo zacha before ben hu ben acher yochel asabo. If it's really hefker, if it really is hefker according to him, even though no one picked it up, he can't change his mind as it's not his. So it's asking it a little bit differently. If no one was zoich in it, then it wouldn't make sense that you would be able to be lachserbo, because again, if he holds it's really hefker, he can't change his mind. It's not his. So Mashin can, according to Rabbi Yossi, he holds that you could be chayzer, you could retract because it's still yours until it's someone else gets it. But it doesn't make any sense. Why would we say that if no one picked it up that he's able to retract? How could he retract? It's hefker. So shani shana mishvua deloshchichi. So the point is that the Rabbanan normally make this gezerah, and the gezerah of Ramoyim. So normally it's mamish hefker completely. However, when it comes to this situation, because you made this time limit, so because you said it's hefker for this amount of time, that's not something which is shchiach, and therefore it's not something that we will institute any takana to say that to have any concern of Ramoyim. So therefore, it just kicks into the din deraisa that it's considered to be hefker. So what does it mean that he can retract? It means he's able to be kind of from hefker, but it doesn't. It's not a 3-day limit that we put because we're chayish of Ramoyim. In this case, everyone agrees. So this is going to be question 6 as well as TB 20. Question 6a. Be'eza hefker ikelman di amr gemar kuli alma lo nafker mershuso, that it doesn't leave your rishus ad yaslidi zaycha. That even the Rabban will hold that it's still considered to be yours. It's hefker lizman. So unlike what I said, it's not that when you are hefker lizman, what you're doing is you're actually saying that it will not be considered hefker to the point that until someone else picks it up. In other words, someone else can pick it up, and then there's Zoichet. But until that happens, since I mentioned a specific time, so the din is that it's considered to be hefker right away. Aren't we concerned about Ramoyim, so we don't make things hefker right away because they'll just do it just to get out of Meiser? We're not concerned when it comes to a milsa del shchicha, something that's not common. This is question 20 as well. I must have read the Afil Rabbanon or Nafik Mershus Mafkir Adi Yasser Shazaych, and I wrote Mafkir Lazman, and that's the entirety of the answer. Okay. Fine. That was answer number 2. Rish Lakish Omer mid the Sefer Rav Yosi Reish Nam Rav Yosi. So let's go slow. The Sefer makes sense. The Sefer mentioned again that let's say at the it's like Rav Yosi in both logics, but let's just use what the Gemara said, that if no one was zoich in it, so yochel achserbo, you can retract because it's still yours. So according to the Rabbanan, we said the second teretz is even the Rabbanan hold it like that because it's considered to be a hefker. Now we're saying Rav Yosi holds that it's still his. The point is it's still his until someone else picks it up. So we established that that's like Rav Yosi, and therefore that's the reason why it also says the whole language is it's totally on ad shelo zachaba. Whether you could retract is whether or not someone else picked it up. So it's mashma until that took place, it was still yours. So the Sefer seems quite like Rav Yosi, but we want to say that the Reish is also like Rav Yosi. The question is, it doesn't make sense. Rav Yosi says that it's yours entirely. Why does he say until someone else picks it up? The Reish says it's not yours until someone picks it up. There's a 3-day window. But why these 3 days? The reason is because we do not want you to forget the laws of hefker. Because otherwise, a person can be mafkarit, and until this guy picks it up, so then we'll say it's not hefker really, according to Rav Yosi. So then all of a sudden, you're not going to really understand what is hefker, because hefker sounds like it's ownerless. You made it hefker. So in the event that they would just blanket say that it always is hefker, so then the din is, the Reish is saying, then a person would forget this whole notion of what is really hefker, because it's only once a person picks it up. So therefore, maybe Rav Yosi holds that we only say that by the first 3 days. However, after the 3 days, in yochel achserbo, even though Ikar Din, you're right, he should be able to retract, because after all, it's still his until someone else picks it up. However, in order shelo tishkach Torah's hefker, so that's why we say, so Yihachi Afil Miyom Rishanami, or Havi hefker. So why don't we just say the first day? Why 3? So Marabba Mibnei Haramoyim Demafkirin V'Hidrin B'Hoin. As we saw in the Ran, is because we're concerned as Ramoyim, that here they are, they trick, they make things hefker, and then they immediately will turn around and reclaim it. So therefore we're going to say, because of them, we don't want it to become midaron, we say it's not hefker. So therefore, they'll still have ownership, so they're not going to end up doing this. But really, as we continue to mem dalan lebeis, according to Rav Yosi, it's not hefker. Namely, it's still his. So v'dilma asi lasuri min achiyav al patur min patur al chiyav. The problem is, that's an issue. You're not allowed to do this, because if in fact it is considered to be Me'ikar Din hefker, of Deraisa lo havi hefker, it's not considered to be hefker, it's still his, so then you may end up getting confused, and you may end up separating foods that is chayev onto foods that are potter, and vice versa. The Amrin le ki masros iser minei ubei. So we say ki masros iser minei uvei. Okay, hold off on that. So let's see how we answer this question. If you look in the top Ran, third wide line of an imsa, she'en says zoichem in a hefker el makabel matana, because savri the machai meiser the asul asuri mimakam acher, you may take from another place the havili min achib al patur. So it's really patur since it's hefker, and it's not a matana. So it should be problematic. So we say it's not an issue. The Amrilei, we say to him, Ki masrois, that when you separate aser minei, Uvei. You need to separate from this particular thing. That is, we make sure, because of this uncertainty, that we step in to make sure that this does not take place. That he will not end up separating Chiyav al Patur, vice versa. Meisvei, Frek the Gemara, Hamafgir es Karmoi, a person who makes ornamentless his vineyard, L'shach in the morning, Almad, he stands up, Ubatsu, he starts picking the fruits. So we see that clearly there's an element of Ramois. So Chayiv bepared of Olois of a Shechel of a Pei, he's Chayiv and everything. However, we put him in a Meiser. So interestingly enough, in fact, he is Potter from Meiser, even though Ilchar, it seems like he's a Ramai. Now, Bishla Ula, I can understand, like Ula, which we said over here on the previous daf, that there are three different Terutzim, and Ula was the second. Omer Ula Seifa Nami Rabbanan, that the Seifa is the Rabbanan, and it was because it's little Shchiach that it was a time mentioned. So I can understand according to Ula, the Rabbanan Kataniwa, the Raisa Kataniwa, that the Rabbanan were mentioning a din deraisa. El Reish Lakish, am I patam in a meiser? Why are you patam in a meiser? So Malach ki Amri Anal Rav Yossi ha Rabbanani. I was only explaining to Rav Yossi, but in fact this is in accordance to the Rabbanan. Okay, stop first. We're going to stop there, but we have a bunch of questions. Starting off with TA 19. Hamafger es Karmoi. So man the Michael Rav Yossi, the one who says like Rav Yossi, the hefker ad yasser shozaycha, that until it's in your hand, the other person's hands, it's still yours. So then it doesn't make sense. Madua hacha patam in a meiser. It's not really hefker; it's still yours. So if it's still yours, so then l'chayra you shouldn't be patam a meiser. So he says Rav Yossi Ari b'mafker bifnei shnayim, which this actually may be the next daf, okay? But let's just see what it says over here. In front of two people, Tidami lo matana, so it's like a gift. The hacha ari b'mafker bifnei shleisha. Okay, so it's not. We didn't really see this yet. We'll see this in tomorrow's daf, which is short. So that's where we're going to stop. Let's look in the Ran here. The Ran says, "Upatim in a meiser." Why? The kivandul ksiv b'meiser taz of yasera. It doesn't say taz of a second time. Loshna huv loshna acher potter. Whoever was the one who was mafker, it's potter, even though he's now koinit. And then the next Ran, kolomer the afgan the tikun rabbanan the toich shloisha. Within 3 days, yachol asabo, that he's able to retract. Within the first 3 days, because we're concerned about a moyim that would end up making something hefker just to get out of meiser. Kivan shekain ki zacha bahu. When he picks it up, he should be mechayim midrabanan, and it says your potter. I feel hachi ki asi hach aliboy shaper the potter. Over here makes sense why it says it's potter. Why? The karma midaraisa katani. It's only talking about a din deraisa. Midaraisa, you are potter. Midrabanan and a chinam midamachayim. You're right. Midrabanan, there is this gezerah of Ramoyim that we say that in fact you are still chayiv in meiser. So when it says that you're chayiv, it only you're potter of meiser, it only means midaraisa you're potter. However, midrabanan you're still chayiv. El Reish Lakish to Michael Meidel Rav Yossi. My potter. Why is he potter of meiser? The Givandul parish shehu zayche boy min hefker. Name of the mahadika hadabe, but nimsa shimashlo batzar v'lo min hefker. He's gathering his own. It's not hefker because it's still his. So we say stam kivan shebiyadu lachsebo shalohu baitzer. It's his. So he said. So kolomer the nehid the idach brisa mokel mokul Rav Yossi. Even though it's true, we did say that brisa according to him was all like Rav Yossi. Al karcha charabanan hivlo Rav Yossi. You're right. Over here, you're forced to say it must be like the sheet of the Rabbanan. It's like the Rabbanan, but in Hawaii pater from Meiser. So maybe only pater from Meiser midaraisa, midarabanan, because midarabanan, you're still chayiv. Why are you pater midaraisa? Because they hold it's a real hefker. It really is a good hefker, even though it was not in someone else's hands, and therefore that's the reason why we could establish this. Even according to the sheet of Reish Lakish, he'll have to say that even though he said the whole brisa is like Rav Yossi, in this situation we have to say it's like the sheet of the Rabbanon, and we'll discuss this further in tomorrow's Daf Ad Kan.